So I'm back from my trip from Nigeria, and if you guys want me to make a video on that and my experience of traveling internationally, I can do that. But I lost my audio equipment somehow, and I'm just gonna have to use my iPhone for the time being. And if I sound a little bit under the weather, it's because I am. There's a little bit of a congestion going on. But with that out the way, let's go ahead and talk about today's video. So before I unbox the new 14 and 16-inch MacBooks with the new M1 chips, I want to review the original M1 MacBook Air that I've been using for a little bit over a year now. Someone left a comment saying that I'm the only tech tuber using a base Air with the 7 GPU cores with 16 gigabytes of RAM. If that's true, it's because YouTube pays me quite literally the bare minimum. So first and foremost, this is the best laptop I've ever used by far, and I don't actually know if I'm going to upgrade to the new 14 or 16 inch because this computer is just that good in terms of what I use it for. Even with the new MacBooks out, I still think at this price point and the performance you get out of just the regular M1, it's good for a vast majority of people and to a certain degree, even professionals. Unless the laptop is making you money, you really shouldn't consider the Pro because that computer starts at $2,000. You know, it's not an entry-level laptop by any means. And I would say that I fit the demographic of being with the vast majority of people. I edit YouTube videos. I'm not shooting a fully fledged Hollywood film like Dune with Hans Zimmer being my sound director. As a side note, Dune, ironically, this background right now is in the desert. Dune is a cinematic experience, and Hans Zimmer is just world-class sound engineer. I should do a movie review of what I watched in Nigeria, Dune being one of them. I watched the live adaptation of Mulan. All I'll say is for that movie is I want the 2 hours of my life back because it was that bad. I watched The Wind Rises. That was a 10 out of 10. That might be the best movie of all time for me. Never have I cried so much during a movie. That was an absolute masterpiece, but we can talk about movies later. I'm late to the party with the movies that I just said, but you didn't come here for movies, you came here for the MacBook. So let me continue talking about the MacBook. Now, it hasn't been picture perfect because this laptop has had some problems, and I've echoed this in the past. But these problems are pretty minor in my workflow. So my editing of choice is Final Cut Pro. I went from iMovie on my iPhone 10 to iMovie on the Mac to now Final Cut Pro, and it's just my preference for video editing. It still crashes, and no matter how much Apple comes out and says, our apps are built for M1, which is true. I'm not going to deny that, but it doesn't mean it works flawlessly. I upgraded to macOS Monterey, but I haven't edited any videos yet. This is going to be the first video edited on Monterey. Show you guys this. I've been gone for about 2 weeks, and guess what crashed today? Final Cut Pro. And as you can see, the time 2021 11/11, and that is today, and happened like 5 minutes ago at 8:55. So like I said, I'm on macOS Monterey. It's still happening. So just kind of funny that it happened while I'm editing this video and talking about it. So back to the video. These crashes happen probably once every 2 weeks. So I'd say it's worth it given that this is the base model with just 16 gigabytes of memory and I'm editing 4K 30 FPS video. So crashes once every 2 weeks isn't that big of a deal. And even when it does crash, I open up Final Cut Pro or Spotify like 10 seconds later and I pick up right where I left off. So that's why I say these problems are pretty minor. Typically, after a year into a product cycle, you'd expect it to still be top of its class or something to replace it. And I can confidently say that the M1 MacBook Air is still class leading in its price category. The trackpad is still one of the best trackpads on a laptop combined with macOS, and it's one of the defining reasons of why people prefer to use a Mac. The gestures and just navigating are a learning curve coming from a Windows laptop, but the trackpad truly is remarkable. just like The Wind Rises. But I'm not going to talk about that movie anymore. That's the last thing I'm going to say about The Wind Rises. 10 out of 10 movie. That's it. Okay, the keyboard. Still satisfying feel, and the function row are, it's good enough, for the most part. Personally, I would like the touch bar, but, polarizing people of, what you like, what you don't like. In terms of the choices, though, since this target audience, I guess, for the function row is probably for non-professionals, I guess having a dedicated spotlight button is fine, but for people like me who like shortcuts, it's just a habit for me to just do command space to bring up spotlight. But overall, the keyboard, very solid, and I can type on this thing for hours on end. The two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the same side doesn't really affect me that much because this is essentially a desktop that is docked majority of the time. And when I'm on the go, I almost never take my charger because I'm that confident in the battery life. And by the time the battery is dying, I should be heading home for the most part. Other side note, I did take this laptop to Nigeria, and I mean, just using this with all day. God, it was a lifesaver. Thank you so much, Apple. But I do want to touch on battery life on how I treat this laptop in a more lifestyle focus. So, like I said before, excuse me, there's just so much in my mouth right now. No homo. Sorry. Battery life is exceptional, and I couldn't imagine how I would even utilize all the battery life on the Pro model because I treat my MacBook Air like my iPhone. And I think I've shut this computer down a total of probably 12 times in a span of a year, but I'm going to break down the numbers for you. So I would say half of the shutdowns were because of macOS updates. So we're at 6, but I would say 4 times intentionally was because I was changing stuff in recovery mode using terminal because I was trying to get stuff to work. So now we're down to 2 times. 2 times I've intentionally shut this computer down in the span of a year. The battery life is so good, and the sleep to wake is like my iPhone, where I just open my laptop and I'm immediately back where I'm at. Now, I will admit you can get away with this by doing this on a Windows laptop, but I found after about 2 weeks, Windows laptops start chugging and you have to restart it to clear everything out. Whereas my MacBook is just running on all cylinders every time I open it. And that's one of the greatest things that I like about this laptop. Build quality of MacBooks are always class leading as well. There's little to no imperfections on this laptop. Oops, I accidentally just got rid of the screensaver. Let me get rid of these notifications real quick. What was I saying? Oh, build quality. So there's almost no imperfections on this laptop. But for those who watched my dbrand removal video where I removed the top part, it hasn't had a top since that video. But I have gotten 2 nicks on it since I was doing my traveling. The bottom still has the skin on it, so I assume whenever I decide to remove the bottom skin, it's probably still going to be in a pretty much flawless condition. Let me put this on Do Not Disturb, by the way. So where does this leave the MacBook Air and M1 1 year later? So in terms of performance of price, or I should say price to performance, this is still one of the best value laptops. Now, obviously, value is subjective because $1,000 is, not attainable to, a lot of people. But in terms of an investment on what you want to get out of a laptop, this is probably one of the best things you can buy for yourselves at this price point if you want something that's going to last for many years to come. If you want a laptop that's going to be kicking strong in 3 to 5 years, then I would say that the M1 MacBook Air base model is a very good choice. Now, devil's advocate, will Windows laptops be kicking in 3 to 5 years? Of course, but will they be kicking as strong as M1? Alexa, notifications, now is not the time. And now I just activated Alexa by accident. Alexa, stop. What was I saying? Windows laptops are probably going to be kicking in 3 to 5 years, but not as strong as M1 processors. I would put money on M1 Max. Now, I made a video a few months ago about not caring about the new MacBooks, and I still stand by everything that I said in that video. People are having a tough time shelling out $1,000 on a laptop already, and adding another $800 or $1,000 only makes it that much harder to justify that purchase. Because yes, the new M1 Pro and M1 Max are great, and there's some serious chips under the hood of these new MacBook Pros. And it's the latest and greatest MacBooks. However, like I predicted, starting at $2,000, it already eliminates like 99% of the population, probably 99.99% of the population. Buying for the sake of having the latest and greatest thing when most of the time you're going to be watching YouTube videos and scrolling on Safari probably isn't the smartest of choices, but you can do what you want with your money. I still think that the MacBook Air, this one is like the original idea of what Steve Jobs had when he first revealed the MacBook Air.
This is the new MacBook Air, and you can get a feel for how thin it is.
Because this is truly like one of my favorite laptops of the modern era so far. It's just so light, silent, and powerful, and there's nothing I could really want more in a laptop. Anything else is just like icing on the cake. Maybe I'll bite my words when I unbox the new MacBook Pros, but who knows? Anyway, time to wrap up this video. A year later, the M1 MacBook Air will be forever a defining moment for Apple this decade in a way that they proved that they can make a laptop without the help of Intel and be okay. Probably more than okay. I appreciate every sub, like, and comment. And as always, guys, much love. The Wind Rises is also a 10 out of 10 if I haven't said that already. Please go watch that movie. I'm about to go watch it right now and cry myself to sleep. On a side note, by the way, I feel like that movie has made me a better engineer by far. Oh my God, that movie is so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking, man.